Hello and welcome back to this damn Fidelity Crusade. This video is going to be one of the many videos that are already out there about the mobile fidelity issues that have just recently come to light. Basically, anyone in the vinyl community is probably already well aware or has seen videos on the subject or made videos of their own. This all finally came to light just relatively recently when some various channels, but particularly the N-Groove, started talking about the potential issue of mobile fidelity having basically for the past, well, really nobody knows for sure, but at least the past 10 to 15 years possibly, all of their records or most of their records being digitally sourced from DSD files. That really gives you pause because, of course, Mofi is perhaps the most long-lasting and legendary of the audiophile vinyl specialty labels, and they're all about in their marketing, or at least always have been, about always mastering from the original analog master tape sources, and all about their ultra premium transfer process and cutting system, and of course their premium pricing for said products. So I myself personally, I've not really owned or purchased a lot of Mofi releases. I do have a budget, so I do try to stretch my dollar as much as I can. Plus, personally, I'm much more of an original pressings guy. I like to try and find the original cuttings or the best vintage cuttings of an album or original import copies if you follow the country of origin rule. Plus, I enjoy tracking those things down, and but ultimately, I'm into collecting records for the best possible sound quality. So if that does turn out to be a Mofi reissue or an Analog Productions reissue, that would be what I'm most interested in. But Mofi records are always priced at a high premium, and when you are led to believe they are a completely analog mastering chain and that there is no digital involvement anywhere in the process, that's part of the reason why you're purchasing a Mofi product. Now, people have pointed out since this started that Mofi never specifically said or stated in their materials that they were always cutting from the analog source and that there was no digital step in there. When you start looking at it, then you can see that, but it's very sneaky because all the wording doesn't use digital whatsoever and seems to indicate in every way possible that it is an all analog product. All vinyl collectors will know it is very difficult to determine in this day and age, even with the resurgence, especially making it more difficult, trying to figure out which releases of new vinyl record pressings are actually all analog. The vast majority of them are, of course, not. They're cut from digital files. And I myself try to avoid digital vinyl wherever is possible because I don't really see the point in having a digital master pressed on a record unless it's just slightly more dynamic in terms of the mastering, relaxing some of the terrible loudness compression that's baked into almost every digital music master of today. So I do try to specifically focus only on all analog pressings because that's what I think is important. So if it's not a vintage or original pressing, then I'm trying to look for all analog modern releases. So you would think that Mofi priding themselves on supposedly being all analog and charging that premium price, well, that it would be important if they had digital cut records. It would be important to actually specify and let people know what they're buying. And so apparently now that all this stuff has come to light, it's going to be a guessing game to try and figure out are any Mofi modern records from about at least 2008 to 2010 up to now, are any of them actually all analog sourced? And it seems to be that there possibly might not be any that are all analog. So apparently what they've been doing is using high-res DSD files, and I'm sure the mastering is obviously a bit different because they're cutting to vinyl, but at that point, I don't understand why that would even be a thing anybody would want, because if you're going from DSD, you might as well buy the SACD with those DSD files already on them, and then you're not getting any coloring or changing of the sound by the vinyl mastering process and your own turntable setup. And that's not to say that Mofi releases sound bad. There many have great raves about them, but it's the dishonesty of the practices and the marketing and the way that these are sold. Because I myself have almost bought many different Mofi releases. There are some I wish I had bought, and I was always kicking myself because on the used market the prices just skyrocket. But now I'm just glad that I didn't, because I definitely would have been apoplectic had I found out this after purchasing and investing heavily into Mofi releases. So again, there are a lot of videos about this subject already. This is just my own 2 cents. But I think with the dishonesty of the practices the label has been doing with this whole sort of trying to sell the public and the record collecting community that they're making all analog releases and charging you that premium price, which is quite significant over a lot of other specialty labels, and also getting that sort of Mofi stamp of approval, getting their classic banner on an album, which of course Mofi goes all the way back to the 70s in terms of mainstream supposed audiophile releases. It's these kind of practices that really grind my gears, and so I personally have no desire and will actively avoid any Mofi product from now on, unless I can verify that it was indeed an all analog release, or it is somehow the best sounding version of a particular album, however that turns out to be. But basically, I have no desire to support a company who basically thinks they can have such dishonesty in their business practices and get away with it. So again, there's no telling if any Mofi releases are actually all analog cuts. You would basically have to contact them and be able to verify on a title by title basis, it seems. And the interview that the In-Groove did is very revealing. It is a little difficult to watch, but the mastering engineers talking are, that it's not their fault. they're basically just answering some questions, and I'm surprised they were as forthcoming as they were. And there has been no official company statement, but I just wanted to get my own 2 cents out there because I think it's important for any record collector to think about this particular issue and how it applies to the vinyl collecting community as a whole. I think the best thing from this point forward would be to have every label actually be very clear about what they're making. And I've thought this for a long time. Other people have said it. But I think the best thing to do would be for the entire industry to actually start labeling releases and sort of bring back a version of the old SPARS code that used to be on CDs back in the 80s and 90s, indicating whether it was an analog digital or digital recording, analog or digital master, and analog or digital product. That was on CDs, and you would see the AAD or the DDD or however it was. Well, I think that should be on vinyl releases, letting you know, okay, analog recording, digital mastering, digital record, or analog mastering, analog record. It wouldn't take very much for people to do, but I think they would sell a lot more records because people would actually know what they're getting and know what they're looking for. So I think that would be the easiest and best way to overcome problems like this. But I definitely think Mofi is going to take a big hit in their sales, as they should, to be honest, because even though I don't really buy a lot of Mofi releases, that just it really stinks. And that is not how you should run a business in any realm. Doesn't matter if it's a record label or some other type of business. That's not how you should treat your customers. And I firmly plan on never supporting Mofi again until this is either rectified or there's no other option, basically. So that's just my own 2 cents, and I think it's good this information has finally come out. I think they should have admitted it themselves, and I do think there should be some sort of official statement, but there just hasn't been anything yet. But again, there's a lot of videos about this topic. I'm not going into a lot of details. You can find all kinds of great information online, but I do suggest very highly going to the InGrooves channel, which I'll link in the description, and looking at his initial videos and then his interview with the people at Mobile Fidelity. So that way you can get all the information and make your own judgments. So as always, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts about this particular issue in the comments below. Have you been a big Mofi supporter? Do you have a lot of their releases? What are your own thoughts on this topic? Again, this is sort of spreading like wildfire through the record collecting community because it's not simply just about Mobile Fidelity, but it's about this issue in large part as a whole, and the whole notion of analog versus digital cut records. So again, that's just my own 2 cents. So I just want to say, as always, keep enjoying records, keep your turntables spinning, and thanks ever so much for watching.